Oh, dude, you gotta play GoldenEye 64. It's like the best first-person shooter. So many good memories.
Oh my god, you haven't played it yet?
It's like the game I played all
Good
the
memories
time.
on GoldenEye 64,
bro. Oh, the multiplayer's fun, I guess. I grew up with older cousins. For a while, every Christmas they would boot up GoldenEye 007 on the 64, and for hours they would mess around in its now known iconic multiplayer mode. Despite being only 6 and not knowing any of the controls, even I got to play with them. It was not a game that I really knew through and through, but it was a pastime that I look back fondly on. Even when I was that young, I could understand how impactful GoldenEye 64 was just by the love and admiration that was felt in the room when we would all play it together. Which was why back in 2010, when GoldenEye was getting a remastered version on the Nintendo I was extremely excited. It was a complete graphical overhaul on the mission stages and even on 007 himself. See you later, Pierce Brosnan, and hello, Craig. They even had Judi Dench voice her character as M between each mission. I'm sure that this decision pissed off some of the older folks who had Wii's, but from a marketing standpoint, it made a lot of sense. I mean, Daniel Craig was the actor playing 007 and was the image people my age saw when they heard James Bond. When this game came out, I immediately picked up a copy and got right into the story mode. It begins with James Bond infiltrating a Russian chemical facility with 006 Alec Trevelyan. The base is led by General Omarov, whom supplies the base's weapons to back terrorist cells attacking British embassies across the globe. As you go through the first level, James has his eyebrows raised as to why an EMP hardened helicopter landed at the facility. Alec tells him to forget about it, as it's going to get blown up with the weapons cache and the chemical tanks when they reach their exfil point. Yeah, really nothing suspicious about that. Nope. Of course, Alec gets killed, and James manages to escape by successfully hijacking a jet. James finds out that there was a call between Omarov and a black market weapon salesman, Valentin Zukovsky, so James goes over to his dance club over in Barcelona, Spain to meet with him. We encounter a suspicious waitress selling counterfeit Russian vodka. Hope she's not a Russian spy. Zukovsky tells James to head to the weapons fair in Dubai, where an EMP helicopter prototype is located. As he says this to James, the waitress kills Zukovsky. Oh no, I didn't see that one coming. She frames it on James, and you have to bust him out of there. M tells James the woman's name is Anatop and she works with Omarov. James warns the head of security at the arms fair, but despite the head of security's overgrown ego,
you'd have to be insane to pull off a heist here with all this firepower. If it moves, we'll kill it. That chopper could not be in safer hands. Incoming!
Gets killed. Can anyone really rely on James Bond to save their life?
Everything I touch dies!
Omarov and Anatop steal the helicopter, but luckily James is able to sticky note his phone on the crash before it flies away. This leads 007 to a remote Russian base in Siberia. As James makes his way to the entrance, an EMP blast is fired over the base. As the Russian forces are disorganized from the EMP blast, Omarov's men attack them and kill off the scientist staff inside the base. Unfortunately, James was unsuccessful in stopping Anatop and Omarov from stealing the GoldenEye satellite weapon. However, he was successful in saving the love interest, Natalia Simonova, who also happens to be the last surviving computer engineer in the base. They're captured and arrested by the Russian army, where they are taken to St. Petersburg. Natalia and James are initially interrogated by the defense minister Dmitry Mishkin. Mishkin thinks that James and MI6 are responsible for firing the GoldenEye satellite.
Who's the traitor in your government? What do you know about the Janus Group? Why did you set off the GoldenEye?
Stop it! Both of you! You are like boys with toys. It was Orumov. There were 2 GoldenEye satellites. He set off one to steal the other.
Of course, before Mishkin can ask any more questions, Omarov bursts in, kills Mishkin, and then holds Natalia hostage. James fights his way out of the jail and follows Omarov in a tank through St. Petersburg urban area and development. James catches up to Omarov and Natalia by causing a train wreckage. Anatop betrays Omarov and kills him. Natalia tells James that Omarov was going to meet someone in the statue park that night. Sneaking through the park, James finds the EMP helicopter that was stolen from the weapons fair. Before he can do anything else, it's revealed to him that Alec is the mastermind named Janus. James is knocked out and barely escapes the helicopter that he's restrained in. Alec also captured Natalia and escapes to the solar array base situated in Nigeria. James flies his way over to Africa and takes out all of the guards in the forest like he's the Predator.
Get to the chopper!
He then fights on the top and then infiltrates the solar array base. Before getting to the control room, James is apprehended by Alec's men. Alec explains that the purpose of the GoldenEye satellite is to cover his tracks as he steals money from the banks in Britain. Once he wires the money into his accounts, the EMP blast from the satellite would erase any record of the money being stolen. James tricks Alec into blowing up his own supercomputers and from the charges he had planted early in their level. Natalia turns off the GoldenEye satellite and James goes off to fight Alec in a manly battle to the death.
I expected more from you.
It's over. Put down the gun. Your bark was always worse than your bite.
You know, this is a little cattier than I remembered it being. James is successful in killing Alec, and Natalia rescues James via helicopter. As they land, British soldiers take over the area, and the two share a passionate kiss, and later on, I would assume they have unprotected sex. First, I'm surprised with how much that I need to unpack. This review is based solely on the campaign, as the servers for its online multiplayer are shut down. I'm not sure if there are community servers that have the game running on emulated versions of the remake. If there are, please let me know, because when GoldenEye first came out, I enjoyed its multiplayer quite a bit. But the fact that I'm not entirely sure where to begin just on the story, I think is actually a really good thing. Eurocom recreated GoldenEye for the Wii, and the ample amount of care that went into its development shows. It was a first-person shooter that was specifically created for the Wii, which was rare as many developers focused on the PS3 and Xbox consoles. Usually, they would make a watered-down version for the Wii as an afterthought. Your first introduction to the game is its music composition. The music score on the title screen immediately draws you into the backdrop of a James Bond movie. And while in-game, the other soundtracks put you into the mindset that you're a secret spy out to save the world. It matches the tone when you're sneaking around avoiding detection, taking out a guard across the field with your silenced P99, and it ramps up perfectly when you're in the middle of a firefight.
Let's get out of here, Alec.
The playstyle for GoldenEye is also extremely accommodating. You can go with either the Wiimote Nunchuck, the Wii Zapper, the Wii Classic console controller, and even the GameCube controller. For older fans of the original, I think it's nice that there's more than one way to play GoldenEye. People were more likely to have the GameCube controller lying around than the classic console controller, so they weren't being forced to use motion controls. Having personal experience using a GameCube controller, I would say that it's not ideal. The novelty of using the GameCube controller for a first-person shooter is cool at first, but the C-stick is too small to look around accurately and smoothly. In addition, the right trigger has a weird motion for your hand to make it shoot your weapon. I'd say the classic controller is the better option of the two, as it appears similar to an Xbox 360 controller. I can't say that for sure, but, I can't buy everything at once when I do a video game review. Since I had the space in my living room area, I did the Wiimote Nunchuck controller scheme, and I found that it worked best for me. I could easily fire from the hip and snap from target to target without a ton of hassle. I thought the motion controls were implemented really nicely. I could crouch and cling to walls for cover, and I could swivel my character's stance by tilting the nunchuck. This allowed me to peer around the corner with ease. But the game isn't totally free from absurd gimmicks.
This is not engaging!
Bond, you can use the face recognition app
that's
on your
nice.
smartphone to look.
With these additional options to pivot your aim, you're going to want to integrate this into your playstyle. As you move through a firefight, whether intentional or by mistake, cover will disintegrate from bullets and explosions. Damaged cover no longer protects you, but this also means you can take out your enemy's cover and bring the fight to them. Even more non-traditional objects that aren't red gas tanks can be used to your advantage. Fighting through St. Petersburg, I found that I could shoot down ceiling fans to crush Russian soldiers, which I discovered completely by mistake. But big deal, right? Other games on the Xbox 360 at the time had already utilized destructible environments, and had done it pretty well, but I have to give it to the developers of the remake. On the Wii, especially a first-person shooter, you couldn't take any of that for granted. If we could get a cross-platform FPS like COD, a Wii owner would jump for joy, but then be disappointed by the bare essentials that were left over in their version. Even how the player wanted to go through a level was really left up to them. You want to sneak through a level? That's great. Take the hidden passage and methodically knock out and silently shoot the remaining guards. But if you want to go guns blazing, you could just open the front door. In addition to specializing your playstyle, you could even determine the mode your weapon was on. You could switch from full auto to burst fire and single fire, depending on the weapon that you are using at the time. For 007's standard P99, you could remove its silencer. This would give the added benefit of more damage from the P99, but at the cost of being less accurate and alerting nearby enemies. I was just amazed by not just one or two ways Eurocom would allow someone to beat a level, but how a player could control James Bond to achieve their goal through several playstyle combinations. Then, based on your playstyle, the AI that you would fight would react competently to your actions. If you're in a firefight, enemies are evasive and move from cover to cover if you can't catch up to them immediately. They even call out to each other, saying where you are in the room. Something that I certainly did not expect from a Wii game. Eurocom brought a lot to the table, even pushing the Wii's hardware to the limits on what it could actually process, which resulted in me seeing the best looking scenes a third-party developer has made on the Wii, and unfortunately some of the ugliest. Main characters and characters with either speaking roles or that interact with James Bond directly look pretty good. The actors portraying the characters in GoldenEye had been motion captured, so the audio and the lip movement are synced perfectly. And even if the Wii didn't have the raw power that 360 and PS3 had, detail on these models were above anything else I could compare on the Wii with this type of genre. The dam, the snow mountain in Siberia, and the dance club had its technical highlights, but the last mission had my attention. The jungle captured probably the best lighting effects that I've ever seen on a Wii game. At certain points, it looks like there's a certain amount of dynamic lighting. Not ray tracing quality, but a noticeable effect that made me think otherwise. I tried researching this, but I couldn't find a direct answer. The foliage, the greens, and the textures are impressive for the system. Whenever I would take out the guards in an area, I would really slow down to observe and appreciate the work putting into creating this world. Here's just a small example of all the areas that I really enjoyed while going through the jungle. But what I found to be the most impressive aspect when experiencing the GoldenEye remake was how expansive the world you traverted in as James Bond. Sure, you are on a linear path from point A to B, but Eurocom does a fantastic job making you feel like you've accomplished a journey. Like when you're fighting your way through St. Petersburg jail. You start out with just your P99 and a dropped rifle, but when you fight through waves of enemies and move up to higher levels, it ends with James entering a tank and bursting out of the Russian prison. It's such a satisfying feeling from starting with just your basic pea shooter to an actual tank. I also encountered this feeling again, but to a much greater extent during the last mission inside the Nigerian base. 007 starts out inside the base's underground tunnels. Then once he reaches the outside, you're given a quick cutscene to where you're along the outside perimeter surrounding the giant control tower. It shows how far you've come, but that there's much more to do. As you approach the tower's base, its size only becomes more intimidating and daunting. It's only until I was avoiding the GoldenEye laser beams that I realized that I was hundreds of feet above where I was standing originally just a few moments ago. I was actually shocked and amazed with how much I traversed when I stopped to look back at my progress. This level of satisfaction that I experienced was similar from games like Dark Souls or from Breath of the Wild. The maps in GoldenEye may not be as expansive, but it certainly felt convincing to me. Then, there would be smaller details that I would notice, like when you're sneaking through the mountainous snowy area. Weapons you pick up from downed soldiers would have ice and snow on it rather than a traditionally generic looking weapon. Of course, pushing the Wii to its limits did showcase that it wasn't completely up to the task. If there's too much going on screen with enemies and explosions, the frame rate will dip. Not a game-breaking halt, but it is something that's noticeable throughout the game during heavy firefights. The frame rate would also take a dip during the skirmishes that had heavy rain or snowfall, and when it's dark in some areas, it looks like it's pitch black on my screen. Even to the point where I didn't know that a hole in the wall was leading to the rest of a level, and it happened to be right in front of me, even though I had my game settings to its maximum brightness. although it might have had to do with the settings on my TV I used to record footage. Then, there's obviously a lack in detail in things like textures on vehicles, the 2D dancing people in the nightclub, and when 007 is flying over the jungle canopy. All said and done, I really loved sitting down and playing this game. If you wanted to have the full James Bond experience, I'd say play on 007 mode. It's GoldenEye's hard difficulty equivalent. In this setting, you have extra secondary objectives that you need to complete in order to proceed to the next mission. These extra objectives fill in on additional story beats and indirect character backgrounds that you wouldn't experience on easy mode. And if you want to go like you're back in the 90s, there's a classic 007 mode. This is where you have no regenerative health and need to maintain your armor. It's definitely an option worth trying out for fun. If you can buy this game at a steal or borrow it from a friend, I highly recommend trying this remake, purely for the sake of experiencing the novelty of an exclusive FPS on the Wii.
What the fuck?
Hey, once again, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'll be sure to bring up more content later on. Thanks, bye.